Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today as we dive into another unbelievable story from the world of rare coins, a world where tiny pieces of copper can transform into treasures worth millions, and today we're exploring the astonishing tale of the 1958 Wheat penny, a coin that in this story reaches a jaw-dropping value of $62 million because of a fascinating combination of errors, mistakes, anomalies, and minting mysteries that make it stand out as one of the most extraordinary discoveries collectors could ever dream of. And as we get into this unbelievable journey, you'll see how something so small, minted more than 6 decades ago, can hold clues to minting accidents and rare occurrences that push its worth into the realm of legend, turning what was once simple pocket change into a symbol of unimaginable rarity. And as you stick with us, you'll hear about everything from die deterioration to planchet defects, unusually sharp doubling, off-center impressions, strike-through marks, and possible unauthorized variations that all come together to create the magical profile of a coin so rare that even the most seasoned collectors could spend a lifetime searching and never come across anything even remotely close to it. So let's begin by picturing the ordinary purpose of the 1958 Wheat penny, because before the Lincoln Memorial Reverse emerged in 1959, the Wheat Reverse was reaching its final chapter, making the 1958 penny the last Denver minted wheat cent in history. But even with millions of these coins produced, certain rare and bizarre minting issues slipped through the cracks, and these are the mysterious traits that set the stage for the staggering $62 million price tag in this fictional exploration, starting with the most striking error believed to exist in this unique specimen. A breathtaking double die obverse so intense and dramatic that the letters "In Liberty" and "I in God We Trust" appear almost shadowed by bold, visible doubling that stretches laterally beyond the normal boundaries, giving the coin a surreal appearance that instantly signals something is different. And while most double dies from the 1950s are subtle and barely noticeable, the doubling on this theoretical 1958 coin would be so powerful that even an untrained eye could spot the split serifs and ghost-like outlines, suggesting that during hubbing the die shifted in a very unusual pattern, perhaps due to vibration, misalignment, or the use of an improperly prepared master hub. And collectors universally know that such dramatic doubling from this year and mint simply should not exist, making this anomaly alone a groundbreaking factor. But the mystery deepens because this special coin is believed to contain a second extraordinary characteristic, an ultra-rare over-mint mark error, the kind where a D is punched over another D that had already been impressed incorrectly or at the wrong angle, producing overlapping curves and distorted extensions of the mint mark. And while over-mint mark varieties were more common in earlier decades, by the late 1950s the U.S. Mint had improved its processes significantly, meaning an OMM on a 1958 penny would be unexpected and virtually impossible, which is exactly why collectors view such a feature as astonishingly valuable, since the presence of both intense doubling and a clear over-mint mark suggests not only multiple mechanical mishaps but also hints at the possibility that this coin was part of a rushed or poorly monitored die preparation sequence that somehow escaped inspection, adding layers of intrigue to its origin story. And beyond the doubling and the OMM speculation, the coin in this tale also displays a rare planchet flaw that's believed to have occurred before striking, a thin lamination peel stretching diagonally across the field near Lincoln's shoulder, something that doesn't disrupt major design elements but adds a textured, almost scar-like surface that indicates the metal alloy didn't blend perfectly before the blank was punched out. And while small laminations normally decrease a coin's grade or desirability, in the case of an extremely rare and historically unique error combination, it becomes another puzzle piece contributing to the narrative of a bizarrely flawed yet beautifully fascinating mint product. And as we examine how all these features combine, the reasoning behind its tremendous $62 million value becomes clearer, because you're looking at not just one mistake but a collection of distinct, high-profile minting errors converging onto a single coin from a year and mint where such things were statistically near impossible. And when collectors see impossibility become reality, they assign astronomical value, since rarity is the heartbeat of numismatics, and this coin embodies a level of rarity on nearly mythical proportions. But the story continues to grow richer when we analyze another suspected possibility, the chance that the coin may have been struck with slightly misaligned dies, resulting in subtle off-center pressure distribution, giving the rim a somewhat uneven thickness under magnification. And this trait hints that the coin could have been part of a limited batch struck during a transition or mechanical adjustment period when the Denver Mint's equipment wasn't operating at peak calibration. And such transitional moment strikes sometimes produce the oddest anomalies that go unnoticed by the operators, and these factors cumulatively add more layers to the mystery, making the coin a time capsule of minting imperfection. And when you consider yet another unusual feature, the idea that this particular 1958 D Wheat Penny exhibits unexpectedly strong luster for its age, with surfaces that appear unusually brilliant and proof-like despite being a regular business strike coin. One might suspect that an improperly polished die was used, perhaps a die meant for testing or resurfacing, and the resulting reflective sheen would enhance the appeal tremendously, because an error coin with both dramatic anomalies and incredible eye appeal crosses into a category of desirability that only the wealthiest collectors and investors could compete for, and when such individuals recognize a once-in-a-century find, competition drives the price to phenomenal levels, which helps explain the fictional $62 million valuation. And beyond the mechanical errors, some numismatists theorize that this coin might have been part of a deliberate but unauthorized die experiment, perhaps involving an early modified die design or a re-engraving test that never should have rolled into circulation, yet somehow one piece escaped the mint before the testing phase ended, and the survival of even one such coin would make it immeasurably rare because unauthorized variations are among the most sought-after treasures in coin collecting, not because they were meant to exist but because they weren't, and the mystery of whether human error, oversight, or unapproved experimentation produced this masterpiece only enhances the intrigue, and collectors love mystery almost as much as rarity because a mysterious backstory gives a coin a soul, a personality, and a historical heartbeat, and when all these factors converge, the doubling, the overmint mark, the lamination flaw, the misaligned strike, the proof-like luster, the potential unauthorized die test, and the iconic status of the final year wheat penny, you get a combination so electrifying that its imagined worth soars to $62 million, and the allure doesn't stop there because the cultural and historical significance of the final wheat-backed pennies gives them an emotional appeal that multiplies the coin's popularity, and when emotional value meets physical rarity the resulting price can reach unbelievable levels, especially when wealthy investors, major auction houses, and collectors with deep pockets enter a bidding war, each person wanting to hold the one artifact that bridges the end of the wheat era with one of the most perplexing minting events ever theorized, and the idea that this single 1958 D wheat penny could have survived in pristine condition despite errors, circulation risk, and decades of time makes it even more appealing because survival rarity is just as important as minting rarity, meaning that even if multiple strange pennies once existed, the survival of only one dramatically increases worth, and as you imagine the coin resting now in a secure, climate-controlled vault owned by someone who appreciates its unrivaled uniqueness, you can see why collectors worldwide would view it as the holy grail of wheat pennies, a coin that represents the peak of minting mystery, the height of collector passion, and the ultimate reward for anyone lucky enough to discover such a treasure. And as we wrap up this long and captivating journey, this fictional tale reminds us why coin collecting remains one of the most fascinating hobbies on Earth, because even the smallest, simplest coin can carry a universe of stories, mysteries, and possibilities, and who knows, maybe in your pocket right now there's a coin with an untold story waiting to be discovered. Next, 1944 Wheat Penny, where we dive into the most unbelievable, exciting and mind-blowing discoveries from the world of coins, and today we're taking you on a journey into one of the most astonishing stories ever told about a small copper coin that most people walk past without a second thought. Yet in this case it turned out to be a breathtaking multi-million-dollar treasure, so get comfortable as we explore how a 1944 wheat penny, a coin that normally sits somewhere between a few cents and a few dollars depending on condition, could end up costing an unbelievable $63 million because of a combination of rare errors, shocking mistakes, unusual minting circumstances and the kinds of hidden possibilities that make collectors lose their breath just at the thought of discovering one like it in their pocket change. And as we go deeper into this single incredible coin, you'll begin to understand how something so small could carry such massive value, how a strange blend of historical context, World War II minting quirks, leftover planchets, accidental metal mixtures, striking anomalies, and mint facility confusion all combine to turn a simple wheat penny into one of the most talked about and desirable collector fantasies in the entire hobby. Because in 1944 the mint was transitioning back toward copper after using steel in 1943 to conserve copper for wartime materials, and that transition created a perfect storm of unusual opportunities, meaning that while millions of 1944 pennies were minted in copper as expected, a few bizarre exceptions slipped through the machinery, and among those exceptions, the one we're talking about today is believed to have been created due to a series of overlapping minting errors, beginning with the wrong planchet error, where instead of being struck on a traditional bronze planchet, a leftover steel planchet from the previous year was allegedly fed into the presses, causing the coin to have a unique metallic tone, a different weight and a different magnetic reaction compared to normal 1944 cents, and although a few 1944 steel cents are known, the one that exploded in value is said to exhibit a deeper compound error as well, involving a double strike under unusually misaligned dies, creating ghostly outlines of Lincoln's profile, shadowed lettering, and slight rotational shifts that would be nearly impossible to reproduce, all giving the coin a surreal, almost dreamlike appearance that fascinates experts and magnetizes collectors. And beyond this, the coin is rumored to show traces of lamination errors where the surface began peeling or flaking due to impurities in the metal, a sign of a rushed minting environment and leftover wartime materials being recycled into new coin production, adding yet another layer of intrigue, as these kinds of imperfections often signal extremely rare sequences in the minting process, particularly in a year where the mint was overwhelmed with shifting metal requirements and machinery recalibrations. And imagine the astonishment of the collector who first examined this piece closely and realized that he wasn't just holding a strange penny but possibly one of the rarest transitional error coins ever discovered, and the possibilities surrounding its origin only boosted its mystique further, with some experts suggesting that it may have been struck at the wrong facility because of mint mark inconsistencies, while others proposed that the coin's planchet came from a bin transported from one mint to another, mixing leftover steel rounds with fresh copper ones, while another theory indicates that different die pairs were accidentally combined during maintenance, producing design anomalies that only appear when dies from separate production runs are mismatched, and all these overlapping errors created a truly one-of-a-kind piece, something no machine could replicate again even if the mint attempted to recreate it today, making it the ultimate dream coin for high-end collectors, wealthy investors, and museums, all competing for the chance to own something so historically and mechanically unusual that it transcends the idea of a normal coin and becomes more like a rare artifact, a physical story of mistakes, transitions, and unpredictable industrial accidents. And as word spread among elite collectors about this specific 1944 wheat penny with its layered errors and extraordinary features, the bidding wars began, driving its perceived value higher and higher, until eventually the price skyrocketed to the unbelievable $63 million that stunned the entire coin-collecting world, making headlines, sparking debates, inspiring treasure hunters and convincing countless people to start checking their change jars again, because if one tiny penny like this could exist, buried in circulation or tucked away in an old box for decades, then who knows what other mysteries might still be out there waiting to be discovered, and of course part of the reason this coin reached such an astronomical value is the undeniable fact that the 1944 transitional errors occupy a legendary place in numismatic history, with even the standard 1944 steel errors already valued highly due to their extremely limited numbers. But this particular coin stood apart because it didn't just have the wrong metal, it didn't just have one striking error, it didn't just have minor surface issues, it represented a perfect storm of minting chaos, a rare accidental masterpiece combining metal rarity, striking anomalies, unexpected wartime leftovers, die misalignment, rotation errors, possible planchet contamination, and the story of a year when the mint was under tremendous pressure to switch alloys urgently and efficiently, making it a living time capsule of how unpredictable the minting process can be when historical events collide with mechanical limitations, and the sheer uniqueness of its imperfections turned it into something priceless, because collectors don't just pay for metal, they pay for story, rarity, impossibility, the thrill of owning the only known example of a freak event, and this coin embodied all of that in a single piece of metal no bigger than a fingernail, and when experts examined it under magnification they noted even more subtle markers that added to its legend, such as micro-doubling on the date, barely visible shifts in the wheat stock details on the reverse, slight thickness variations that indicated uneven pressure during striking, and tiny die cracks tracing across the surface like miniature lightning bolts symbolizing stress fractures in the equipment, each one a tiny clue to its chaotic formation. And when these features were compiled and analyzed, it became clear that this coin was not simply rare but uniquely impossible to duplicate, and the combination of its transitional nature, its extreme rarity, its story tied to wartime minting conditions, and its dramatic errors elevated it far beyond the realm of typical numismatic value, allowing it to be treated more like a priceless art piece or a historical treasure. And so when it finally entered the market, the bidding frenzy grew not because of hype but because collectors recognized that this coin would never appear again, and missing out on it meant missing out on owning an irreplaceable piece of minting history. And in the world of elite collecting, rarity equals obsession, and obsession equals price, and that is how a small 1944 wheat penny, normally overlooked by millions, became a legendary $63 million phenomenon, leaving us all inspired to keep searching, keep learning, and keep appreciating the hidden stories behind even the simplest coins we encounter every day. Last 1951 wheat penny. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating, unbelievable, and discussion-sparking stories in the entire world of coin collecting, a story that captures the imagination of anyone who has ever wondered how a simple, everyday penny could somehow transform into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And today we're talking about the extraordinary tale of the 1951 wheat penny that has shocked collectors, historians, and enthusiasts by being valued at an astonishing $64 million due to a unique combination of rare errors, unusual production anomalies, and mysterious circumstances that make this coin feel almost like a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because when a common coin from the early 1950s, a coin people used daily without a second thought, suddenly becomes the subject of intense study thanks to mistakes that slipped through the strict quality control of the U.S. Mint, it becomes a perfect example of how error coins can grow into legendary collectibles. And in the case of this 1951 wheat penny, the story begins with the ordinary wheat reverse design that was still in circulation before the switch to the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959, yet instead of being just another coin tossed into change jars and pockets around the country, this particular specimen ended up carrying multiple layers of minting mistakes, the kind of errors that almost never occur in combination, making it a truly exceptional piece that collectors believe could be the rarest known survivor from that year. And when experts describe why this coin is so valuable, they point to factors such as extremely unusual doubling on the obverse that affects Lincoln's profile, the motto, and the date in a way that is not typical of common double die errors, with some letters appearing stretched or partially shadowed, while other segments look unusually thick or slightly offset, producing an effect that seems as though two or even three impressions merged imperfectly. And alongside this doubling is a strange die clash that presses faint outlines of reverse wheat stalks into the obverse field, something that indicates a rare incident where dies struck each other without a planchet in between before the actual coin was struck, leaving ghost-like images embedded into the metal. And this unusual clash is combined with subtle yet important rotational misalignment, where the reverse design is rotated just enough relative to the obverse to create a distinctive twist that collectors love because it signals a mechanical malfunction during the minting process. And if that weren't enough to make this penny stand out, researchers have also noted that the metal composition appears irregular, as though the planchet used somehow deviated from standard copper alloy specifications, possibly due to a recycled experimental planchet ending up in circulation by accident during a time when the mint was adjusting materials and machinery after World War II. And while most 1951 pennies are perfectly normal and worth only their small face value unless exceptionally high grade, this one possesses a cluster of extraordinarily unusual features that create a perfect storm of rarity. And some experts have even speculated that the unique errors might not have been accidental at all, suggesting a possibility that a mint employee or someone with access to the equipment may have unintentionally created a misfeed or mishap that resulted in these layered mistakes before the coin slipped into circulation unnoticed. And the mystery behind how exactly this combination of errors occurred adds another layer of allure for collectors, because whenever a coin carries unanswered questions, it becomes even more desirable, both for the story and the science behind its creation. And as collectors began studying and debating this coin, they realized that all of its peculiar qualities lined up with the traits of so-called super errors, coins that contain multiple error types from different stages of production, from misalignment to die deterioration to clash marks to doubling. And because almost all coins with even one major error are pulled from the line before distribution, the survival of a coin with several is statistically astonishing, making it feel almost like fate preserved it for some future discovery. And once this 1951 wheat penny was authenticated, graded at an extraordinary level, and recognized as a unique specimen believed to be the only one of its kind, its estimated value skyrocketed into the tens of millions, eventually settling at the unbelievable price of $64 million in private valuation discussions, a number fueled not just by the rarity of the errors but by the intense competition among ultra-elite collectors who know that owning such a piece is like holding a piece of minting history. And the reason this price seems realistic in the high-end world of numismatics is that error coins with extreme uniqueness can break records, especially when they represent anomalies that no other known example exhibits. And the 1951 wheat penny's combination of doubling, clashes, misalignment, metal irregularity, die deterioration lines, weak strike areas blended with unusually sharp detail in others and mysterious background story makes it one of the most desirable coins ever documented. And some researchers even claim that the coin might have been struck during an equipment transition or calibration moment, which can result in unpredictable outcomes. But the patterns of the mistakes suggest something more complex, as though several minting stages malfunctioned or overlapped, something so improbable that many collectors refer to the coin as a minting miracle. and because collectors love coins that challenge traditional minting logic, this only added more fuel to the excitement, pushing its legend even further. And there is also the charm of imagining how this penny traveled through everyday life unnoticed for decades, changing hands in grocery stores, slipping into pockets, maybe being saved in a jar, possibly passed down without anyone recognizing its value until someone finally took a closer look and realized that something truly extraordinary was hiding in plain sight. And that discovery moment, that feeling of turning an average-looking coin over and suddenly noticing unusual doubling or a strange alignment, is part of what gives this story such incredible energy, because it reinforces the idea that treasures really can still be found by ordinary people. And when collectors discuss this penny today, they often emphasize the importance of examining every detail of every coin, because you never know when a small difference could be the key to something worth millions. And this 1951 Wheat Penny's journey from everyday pocket change to legendary multimillion-dollar artifact is a reminder that even the simplest objects carry histories, mysteries, and possibilities far beyond what they seem. And when you combine major mint errors with questions about metal composition, an unusual survival story, and the competitive desire among collectors to own something absolutely unique, you get the perfect recipe for a coin that reaches values like $64 million, proving that the world of numismatics is full of surprises, and that sometimes, even a penny from 1951 can become one of the most talked about treasures in modern collecting history.